7 most cruel serial killers in history, worth calling humans. Serial killers become the craziest creatures roaming the earth. Usually they are not satisfied with killing just one person. They will come back at another event to prey on the second victim, and so on. That's why they are branded as serial killers. Apart from that, the motives varied. Some started with sexual assault or robbery. Here's a list of the world's most vicious serial killers. Number 1. Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer is also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal. Apart from being a serial killer, Dahmer is also a perpetrator of sexual violence. Dahmer was proven to have killed 17 people and boys from 1978 to 1991. His method of fulfillment involved rape, mutilation, cannibalism, and mummification of parts of his victims' bodies. Dahmer has indeed been diagnosed with various mental disorders, such as borderline personality disorder and psychotic disorders. This man was arrested in 1992 and sentenced to life imprisonment. But Dahmer did not have to wait long to serve his sentence, because in 1994 he was beaten to death by one of the prison inmates.
But on November 29, 1994, inmate Christopher Scarver, who called himself Christ, bludgeoned Dahmer with a metal rod from the prison gym. Dahmer died on the way to the hospital.
Number 2. Ted Bundy. Or commonly known as Theodore Robert Bundy, was a serial killer, rapist and robber who operated in the 1970s in various states in the United States. Bundy, who looks handsome and charismatic, uses this advantage to approach his victims in public places and lure them to a quiet place. Bundy's victims were mostly young women aged 15 to 25 years and were university students. Bundy's method of murder was to beat or strangle his victim after successfully luring him into Bundy's car. Apart from killing, Bundy was also known to have sex with the corpses of his victims and take Polaroid photos of his victims. Bundy was sentenced to the electric chair and was executed in 1984 Florida prison.
5-4. Bundy is scheduled to die in Florida's electric chair tomorrow morning at 7.
Number 3. John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy was found guilty of killing 33 men in 1972 to 1978 in the United States. Gacy carried out his killings in his own home, which lured his victims by force or deception. Upon arrival of the victim at Gacy's house, he would make the victim drunk and helpless before then finally raping and strangling them to death. Gacy mostly buried the bodies of victims in the basement of his house, without the knowledge of his wife and children.
Below, into the crawl space. Moving on hands and knees, the evidence technician surveyed the muddy ground. One officer took a shovel, dug down about 6 inches, and pulled up something hard.
He was arrested in 1980 and sentenced to death in 1994.
John Wayne Gacy was headed for jail on a drug charge. He was connected to several missing boys, but not a single body had been. As the years went by, each and every appeal was denied. At last, a final execution date was set. May 10, 1994, 14 years after his conviction.
Number 4. Zodiac Killer. This Zodiac Killer is one of the most phenomenal cases in the United States and has not been successfully solved until now. He won the fame of this killer because the one who sent the letter to the print media containing the code or password of the 4 passwords that had been sent by this Zodiac user was only one that was successfully solved by this mysterious killer who allegedly killed 8 people, both women and men, throughout 1963 to 1970. Several suspects have been established by the police and private investigators, but none of them has been proven to be a strong Zodiac killer. Until now, the case of the Zodiac Killer is still being investigated in various states. Number 5. Paul Knowles. Paul Knowles, famous as the Casanova Killer, the nickname stuck with this man because of his face and stature, which are very handsome. However, unlike serial killers, Knowles' victims tend to be random, do not have any characteristics, any similarities between one another. This is because Knowles does not kill systematically with one modus operandi. Knowles randomly killed people he encountered along the way after previously escaping from prison. The journey and the killings were carried out by Knowles from the 26th of July, 1974 to the 21st of November, 1974. He was stopped by armed civilians in November 1974 and handed over to local security officers. Unfortunately, Knowles could not be processed in court. When a sheriff and an investigator were about to move Knowles to Georgia to collect evidence, Knowles tried to fight back by seizing a gun that had a sheriff. The investigator, who was driving, tried to take over the chaotic situation by shooting Knowles in the chest 3 times. Knowles died at that time. Number 6. William Bonin. William Bonin is also known as the Freeway Killer because he often dumps the bodies of his victims on the side of the highway in Southern California. The Bonin earned his reputation as a serial killer by raping, torturing and killing at least 21 men between 1979 and 1980. However, the Bonin often did not kill alone. Male gender. Bonin was arrested on June 11, 1980, after being watched by the local police for 9 days. He was arrested while carrying out the action when raping a 17-year-old boy. Further investigation proved that Bonin was the freeway killer. This proof then made Bonin sentenced to death by injection.
Bonin claimed that he'd been sexually assaulted himself as a young boy while in juvenile detention.
I asked him, I said, what happened? To have sex with the young boy, and the officers could hear sounds coming out of the van that disturbed them. And the police almost...
Death penalty. Bonin led police to a missing body and detailed 21 chilling murders, convicted of 14 murders, and sentenced to die by lethal injection.
Number 7. Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos is the only known female serial killer in the United States. He works as a prostitution and his victims are his customers. Wuornos was charged with killing 7 men in Florida by shooting them at point-blank range. However, Wuornos defended himself by stating that his customer tried to rape Wuornos while he was working as a prostitution. The act of killing he committed was an act of self-defense. But his lawyers could not save him from the law. Wuornos received the death penalty by injection in 2002.
The reason I'm accepting is there's not enough idea. I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, I'm telling you the truth about everything. I mean, they got violent with me and I decided to defend myself. And I wasn't going to let them leave the shit out here and kill me either.
On October 9th, 2002, Aileen Wuornos was put to death by lethal injection at the age of 46. Her strange final words: "I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie. Big mothership and all. I'll be back."